Welcome to In the Ven Zone with Christine McKay, where we get candid about what it takes to negotiate effectively. You'll learn from the challenges and successes of entrepreneurs, executives, and experts. We help you change the nature of your negotiations and get more from every deal you do.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another amazing episode of In the Ven Zone, where we help you, the small and mid-sized business, elevate your negotiation skills. And we do that by bringing you fantastic guests with amazing insights into their own negotiations, as well as experts who give just amazing insights and based on research and all the work that they've done. And today is no exception. I always say that I have amazing guests because I work really hard to find very specific people to bring to you guys. And I'm so excited to have you here. And if you love what you're hearing, you guys can just go check out venn.zone to get all the show notes. And there's a gift there waiting for you as well. So go check that out. We'll have our guests' information and everything there. And we just come check it out. So let's get right to it. So today we have, and I always put an umlaut on his name because I'm German and that's what I do. So I'm hoping I don't screw his last name up. So today we have with us Joey Drolshagen, and Joey is a personal and professional development coach, author, and he's a professional speaker. But he has an amazing story and he has had years of experience in sales, and he works with business owners and executives and small businesses to help them elevate their sales and improve their overall position in the market. So Joey, thank you for being here with me. I really appreciate it. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Christine. It's an honor. I was really excited about this conversation. When we talked last week, it's like, man, I cannot wait for us to have this conversation here. So I'm excited.
Sweet. So tell us about your journey. I never read somebody's full bio. So tell us how you've ended up to here and what are some of the cool things you're working on today?
Absolutely. So I have a 28-year career in corporate America. I started out back on a drafting board and went all the way up with degrees and everything up to a vice president of sales. And I specialized, I didn't plan on this, Christine, but I specialized in helping companies that were either in bankruptcy or going into bankruptcy to come out that other side back into profitability. So I learned a lot. I grew a lot. I got to do a lot of things as far as when we talk about, everything I do is mindset. So when we talk about growing that mindset, growing that abilities of what to achieve beyond what we at one point think we're able to achieve, and coming out with that is just has been an incredible journey. Now, the corporate America, it wasn't my passion. My passion was always and from the time I was 22 years old, I heard a gentleman by the name of Jack Boland speak. And I don't know what he said, but it just lit this fire right in my soul to inspire and motivate people to live better lives. And so the last company I worked with about 9 years ago, once we got back into profitability, we got new ownership and, they plugged millions of dollars into the organization to upgrade everything to where it needed to be, is I said, okay, now I want to live my life my way. I want to live it by my design. And I have multiple certifications that I had been going. I've been a continuous student of this side of things since I was 22. And so I have multiple certifications in what I do. I've had multiple clients and successes in what I do. And I just decided at that time, my dad passed away. My mom passed away a year later, and I found myself without either one of my parents in a very short period of time. And it's I don't want to live like that anymore. I want to take this step out. And with I got 3 clients I started working with, and I resigned. I moved to the mountains of South Carolina, bought a house where I've always wanted to live, and I've been going forward ever since. It's just been an incredible, incredible journey.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that. I love those kind of stories. So tell us about some of the clients that you're working on today. I mean, of course, don't disclose anything because we never want to do that. But tell us about some of the work that you're doing. And Absolutely. I want to come back to this bankruptcy thing because that is a fascinating angle. And we talked a lot about that when we had our earlier conversation.
We did. Yeah. And right now today I have, so I only work with 7 clients at a time. And the
Wow.
reason I do that is, I know there's, and I don't knock it at all, but I know there's coaches that herd 150 people through their programs and things like that. I don't operate like that. I have a system that we follow that's been proven, it's scientific, and it's been proven to help people to achieve what it is they want to achieve. So for instance, one of the clients I'm working with today, when we met, he had 3 jobs.
Yeah.
and his favorite, the area that really sparked his life was real estate. And it wasn't the real estate buying and selling, things like that, listing and selling. It was real estate investing.
Mm-hmm.
And in the time we've been working together, which hasn't even been 6 months yet, he is at a point now where he can start he's letting go of the 2 of the positions that he had so he can step fuller into the real estate. And through the processes that we're doing is he's having opportunities coming up. So now all of a sudden he went from, trying to list houses, trying to find buyers for houses was any effort he put into it. And it was his 3rd priority in the 3 jobs he had, to having buyers and sellers showing up to him, to having opportunities to do property management showing up for him, to have opportunities for investing and flipping some houses and doing things like that, like refurbing them and things like that, that are all of a sudden, all these things are happening. And it's through following this process. I have another one of my clients who I've been working with for a little while now. And it's 67 years old. She's retired from teaching. And when we met, she said, man, I just feel like I'm just waiting to die, really. Like I have no enthusiasm. So I've taken her through my program, the Life Ignite program. We've gone through the program. As a result of that, it sparked an interest. She loves pets. She loves animals. So she has started a company, and this is really cool. She started a company where she's working, where she'll watch people's pets. She'll go to them and watch them. They'll come to her and watch them, but she travels to different places. So she's setting up hubs in 5 different areas of people who can then, with people that can operate within her business. So she's coming right out of the gate, almost with something similar to a franchise.
Oh, wow.
So it's so much more than just watching than just pet watching and stuff. I had another client of mine a couple of years ago, Christine, who came to me and she was totally burned out on teaching and such. And she just couldn't do it for another year and things like that. Her vision ended up coming out that she ended up purchasing a short bus, converting it to a hair salon, resigned from teaching and retired and went out, and she goes to industrial parks and pulls in. People walk out of their office, get their hair cut, and walk right back into their office. So it's like, come to them here. And then she bought a larger bus within a year and put a boutique in the front. So women could go out there and shop and then get their hair cut and then walk right back into work. It's
wow.
like we are capable of such incredible things in our life. But what happens, and this is where it fits right in with negotiations, what happens is we let the fears, doubts, things like that step up, and we negotiate a loss before we ever take a step into it.
I talk a lot about how the hardest part of any negotiation is the negotiation we have between our ears. And that, it's, and as soon as we want something, our emotion is engaged. Emotion engages before logic, always. And so when we get emotionally involved in what we want an outcome to look like, we start regulating ourselves in our own head. And we start saying, oh, well, if I ask for that, that customer is going to walk out the door. If I do this, then that supplier's I'm not going to get treated as well. Or, oh my God, if I ask for this much from the investor, they're going to say no, and so we tell ourselves these stories that are not true. And to everybody who's listening, I know I sound like a longshoreman in New York today. So I got all my vaccines, did all my things, went out, and then I got laryngitis. So it's like, all right. So bear with me. But
it actually sounds cool though. It's kind of like Demi Moore and stuff, it's got that.
My husband would call it my 1-900 voice, but that's not a very cool thing.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. So anyway, but it is. I mean, it's that negotiation we have with ourselves. I mean, I don't know if you had a chance to listen to my episode with Nicole Khalil or with Jillian Michaels, because we talk about that. We in those two episodes we talk about how negotiation with ourselves is really what prevents us from asking for more of what we want, and that we do that, one, because we're afraid of being rejected, we're afraid of being judged. Sure. And then in negotiation, we also have this dual issue where we don't trust our counterpart.
Oh yeah, and sorry about that. And you know, God forbid we ask for too much, right?
Oh, absolutely. And so, and
so we minimize what we're doing. So, you know, just from a private standpoint, I have a 24-year-old son, 25-year-old son. I absolutely adore him and stuff. And a few years ago, I bought him a car, and I'm down in South Carolina. He's in Michigan going to school. So I bought him a car. So I brought the car to him, and the whole thing was he had to sell the car he had. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so I, you know, everything I do is surrounding visions and things like that, like what's possible. Cause then you build exactly that mindset. You start building what that is, you know? And so I'm driving up there and he calls me up and he goes, Dad, I can't believe it. Like somebody's coming to look at the car tomorrow and I haven't even advertised it. And I go, oh, that's awesome. And he goes, yeah. And the next thing he said, Christine, was, but he's a mechanic and he's going to find everything wrong with it and only offer me $200 for the car. And that's what you're talking about right there. That's exactly. What happened. And at that point, even what we want fades to scraps of what's possible for us in that emotional process of that happening. And so, you know, thank God I do the work I do, because I could kind of digest that. And I go, Joey, okay, let's walk through this. What facts do you have? The only facts you have is that somebody's coming to look at your car, and he's a mechanic. That's all you know, but you've driven your story right into the ground based on those two items. So he goes, wow. So we walk back through it, get him pumped, you know, back into the vision of it and everything. And what do you want to get for the car? What do you want it to go like? He goes, I want to go to somebody who's really going to use it and you know, and it'll be perfect for them. And he got back into it. The guy came the next day, looked at the car, gave him $200. He was like a $1,500 car. So he gave him $200 less than he was asking. And Joey was just ecstatic. And that's what happens right there with, you know, having that power of somebody like what I do is that other side coming in and helping people that have visions way up here to live way up there. Absolutely. Early on in my sales, whenever I delivered an offer to somebody on a program or something, you know, when I would, you know, I would always be really nervous and thinking, man, I should go down. And I would drive myself down to where I'm selling things where I should be at a 25% margin. I'd be at a 16, 18, maybe 20, you know, to do it. And sure, they'd give me the job because everybody else is 25 to 35% margin on it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Taking companies through bankruptcy teaches you to do things to side. I mean, it really does force you. For instance, to the best of my knowledge, I am the only person in the history of General Electric to have them write me a check for $1 million to keep producing them parts. That's never happened before in the history of GE. And maybe it has, not that I know of, though, not that we knew of as a corporation or thing. And the only reason I had the guts to do that is it was because we're at that point of either something or nothing. You know, you're either going to close the doors or you got to do something. And all of a sudden, it's like that desire to see those 300 families that work at this corporation, you know, be able to feed their family, house them, all that stuff and everything. It had a higher mark. And it really taught me a lot when I'm coming into conversations, when I'm coming up against things, to really look at them, what's best for everybody that's involved. Negotiations are not just like if you and I are talking about something, it's not just you and I. It's everybody in your area. It's everybody in my area. Like it's really looking at that. You know, when they say a win-win in negotiations, it really isn't just one-on-one though. It's across that corporation, that organization, that whatever it is, you know, even like in real estate, a house, it's that whole family that's involved with it from both sides, not just those people sitting at the table signing the papers.
Oh, that's a great point, because one of the things that I love talking about is the invisible negotiator at the table. And there is always an invisible negotiator at the table. I have a client right now who is small business, and he has a partnership with somebody, and it was this really funky, weird thing that it's very convoluted what these guys created. And my client's wife found out about it, and she freaked out about it. And she's not a business person, but she didn't understand it, and he couldn't explain it and explain the rationale of it very well. So she freaked out, and she got super emotional about it. And she went in and really fractured the relationship, so that lawyers were about to get involved, and it was about to get super ugly. And because her husband didn't realize that she was always at the table with him, even though she wasn't actually at the table, right? And until he hit a point where, until the situation hit a point where she got uncomfortable, and then she inserted herself in the process, which mucked everything up. And so understanding who's that invisible negotiator at the table, and you have employees, you have boards of directors, and if you're a smaller organization negotiating with a larger company, the decision maker is rarely at the table, right? That decision makers escalated up.
And there's that side, right? There's that side of it. But even, I can't think of the name of the movie. As you were saying that, I could picture it as, two lovers are laying in bed next to each other, and they're having this conversation. But all of a sudden, like, his mom pops up with her input and everything else, and then his dad, and then her mom and her dad pop up. A lot of the things we do, and a lot of the things I work with people on, is that conditioning. Our conditioning is not our fault. We weren't born and we, and got to check a box on what conditioning we wanted, right? So whether you grew up like I did on, outside of Detroit, Michigan, in a low income blue collar family, or whether you grew up as a child of the Clintons, that you received that conditioning based on how you grew up. And so we carry that forward into everything. We carry that. That's one of the things that, because of don't be selfish, don't ask for too much, that's what causes people to have the fears. The same things happen that I had in sales, where it's like, I got to bring this down, and I got to bring this down, and I got to bring it, because it, rather than getting to that other side that says, no, this is a win-win at the 25% margin, because it's allowing us to grow and expand, which means we'll be doing better for you as we go forward. And it allows you to pay a reasonable price on this, and, and get the value and whatever else is tied to that, package with that. But there is that side of things too, the invisible conditioning that carries with us and such. And people that don't recognize that continue to go forward, and they don't, they're the people that don't, they want this, but they feel like they're always settling down in here someplace. And they'll blame the people they're negotiating against, talking to. They'll blame their employers. They'll blame their family, their spouses, all this. But it's really within here. It's really the mindset. When that shifts, all of a sudden they can literally start, and quickly, if done right, start seeing that rise up to that expectation level.
Yeah, I was one of the guests that I've had on the show before, LV Randolph. He has a hedge fund. He's out of Boston, and he's the head of a company called Cambridge Argillite. And he was talking about how one of the challenges that he has, and he works primarily with people of color, is that people of color and women often don't ask for what they need even. So if somebody's seeking funding, it's like they go in and they ask for something. It's like, he'll go, well, I don't think that's what you need, but they're afraid to ask for what they actually even need. Not even what, whereas others will come in and ask for not just what they need, but what they actually want. And it'll be more than that, because they need more to sustain the business. And he's more likely to invest in those people, because if you can't ask for what you need, your probability of being successful over the long term is actually kind of lower. And so he talks about that in that episode. And it was really a great conversation, because that we do. And I love what you're saying around conditioning. And as you're saying it and you're describing that movie scene, I can hear my mom in my head, and I can hear my dad, and, and it's like, those are not pretty sounds a lot of times. I don't like those sounds a lot of times. And so I have to shut those off. How do you shut them off?
Yeah. And that's part of the whole thing is, like I talk about corporate and I learned a lot there and I was really good at what I did, but it wasn't my passion. So from the time I was 22, I wanted to follow this other route. It was before there were coaches or things like, life coaches or things like that and stuff. So I didn't know what it was at the time. I thought maybe it was a pastor of a church or, and I'd look down that avenue and I didn't know what it was. But my conditioning was from very early on, a man gets a job, supports a family, and hopefully lives long enough to enjoy some years in retirement. That's what my conditioning was. So the reason I stayed in corporate America with 28 years is because I had such a battle over that conditioning that when I would try and step out and do something else, I've started multiple construction companies while I worked full time. I was a builder. I, tried all these other things, but and I'd build them up to the point of stepping off where it's like, okay, I'm getting income. I'm getting, and I would just hit that wall. And it was that wall of that conditioning. And I've tried multiple coaching programs. I worked with multiple coaches. And a lot of what I found back then was I ran into people that they wanted to help me their way, not how I needed it. So I'd walk away from the coaching programs going, man, this must not be for me. And I continued that process. And then, like I said, my dad passed away. My mom and him were married 56 years, and she just didn't want to be alive without him. And within a year, she passed away of natural causes, no illnesses. And I found myself alone. And Christine, I was just like, I can't stand living this way anymore. Like, I can't stand going to a job that is not fulfilling for me, living this life the way I am. I don't want to keep living this way. And I had one of those moments in time where I was driving down the expressway and I pulled over and I just said, God, give me any other passion. Give me, help me be passionate about what I'm doing here in corporate. And because I can't stand living this way. It was that dreaded prayer. You know what I mean? That like begging kind of prayer with that. And it broke down and I said, or show me a way. And after that, an opportunity showed up and I could have said yes or no.
Yeah.
And I leaned into it. And then another opportunity from there showed up and I leaned into it. And within 6 months of that day, I had 3 clients I was working with and I resigned from corporate America. It was scary. And I still face those patterns a lot, that conditioning going forward. When I moved down to South Carolina here, it was exciting. The trip was exciting and everything. But once I was down here and settled in, it was like, what the heck did I do? And they made it even harder, Christine, because the new owners kept coming at me and they're going, listen, you can work from down there. You can do however you want to work, everything else, your own schedule. And we just don't want you to leave the company. And so, I had that constant, like that pull back into it that makes you question yourself even more. But I knew, because I'd done it for so long, what serving 2 masters is like, and it's not a fun life for me. And so I just took that step and moved forward through it. There's a lot more to it than that with the fears and things like that. But ultimately, if I'm working with somebody, the first thing I do is I start with a vision, like I said. But you said this and it kind of triggered, it kind of hit is If I'm talking to somebody and they tell me about what they need, if they're a client, I go, stop. I don't care about your needs. Your needs are so far below your wants. If all you do is live on your needs, you're going to be living in struggle and want your entire life. Yeah. So let's forget that and leave that down low. And let's launch into what you truly, truly desire. What would you love in your life? And then move into that. If somebody's in sales and they're working with purchasing people and things like that, I'll tell them the same thing. Forget about what the guy needs. You're going to get those covered in the conversation. Go after what this guy wants. Go after what you're doing is going to impact his life, his family's life, his employees' life. Like, look for that. Because then when you start filling that, the needs will automatically fill in. They're going to need the parts they need when they need them at whatever, and things like that and stuff. But when you focus only on that, you cut it short. And that's why when we focus, that was the big twist I learned. When I quit focusing on filling people's needs, even in corporate America, and I started looking at how do I make this guy have a good day? I had customers, Christine, through this process, I would have to go to customers and double their price, get 25 to 50% down. And instead of like a 6-month lead time, I'd have to move it out to a year or more before they would ever see parts. Now, when you think about that, that doesn't even fit their needs. let alone their wants. But I would work with them in a way of helping, of being able to supply that and such to them. And through that process, like I've had multiple people say, Joe, we love working with you. We hate your company because of what's going on, but I love working. But that's what it is when we build that with people, whatever we're doing, we're negotiating. It doesn't matter if you're, somebody's a stay-at-home mom, or even my son. When my son was young, he'd get in trouble for something. And he'd come up to me. He goes, Dad, I got a deal for you. And his mom would go, no, we're not dealing. I go, hold on. Let's hear what he's got. And if he came up with something reasonable, I'd go, yeah, okay, that makes sense. Let's do that. When we start, even at any age, when we start training that part of ourselves, our life will get better. Our mindset will shift as a result of just doing that. Using things like that. And it's not really labor or work or effort. It doesn't have to be. It can be fun. It can be enjoyable. It can be experimenting with things. I know I said a lot there, but let me hone in. If anybody you're dealing with, if you look for identifying what their wants are, you'll understand what their needs are and go from there. You're automatically at a higher level. So you can automatically, it will increase the internals of what you're comfortable asking for. And then really shifting that conditioning. Part of that is noticing that conditioning within you. I took stories like money doesn't grow on trees. Yeah. Have you heard that?
Oh, yes.
That was such a huge one in my family. What do you think? Money grows on trees? Money doesn't grow on trees. And I ended up shifting that into, and this is how I used it here as an example, but anybody can use these any ways to power up. I took that limiting story, money doesn't grow on trees, and I've created a story, and then I would practice putting that story on. I would practice expanding that story to, there's so much financial abundance in this world that every living, breathing person could have more than they could ever use, and there'd still be an unlimited supply. That money literally grows on trees because it's paper. And that started making a shift within me. And each time somebody starts making a shift within them, they're more powerful. They're a more powerful negotiator from all sides and for everyone that's involved with that situation. Whether it's seen or unseen.
I love that. Everybody who's just tuning in right now, I'm sitting here really having this great conversation with Joey Drolshagen. And go check out Venn.zone to find the show notes and all that good stuff. We have some gifts for you, both Joey and I do, so you can check that out there. So I love what you're talking about, because you kind of hit on two big things. For me, one is around this discussion around wants, and you're not ignoring needs, but you are putting a high value on the wants in life, because as we move forward, in order to move forward, we have to move forward based on what we want. And then the other thing you talk about is about understanding what your counterpart wants. And that's something that people, especially in Western cultures, are not effective at. We get so myopically focused, and we are trained and conditioned that negotiation is win-lose. Even people who use the term win-win, and I was taught by the professors who wrote the book Getting to Yes, and I used to get into debates with them, because win-win is become this nudge, nudge, wink, wink, I'm going to screw you anyway. And so it's lost its meaning. And so I don't like to use it, because it also gamifies the negotiation process, which for me is just, negotiation is a conversation about a relationship. Right. And you can't win a relationship, but you can get more value out of it. The audience has heard me say that almost every episode. But I love what you're talking about, because you're actually opening the door for, it's not just about what your counterpart needs. It's about what they want, and that negotiating from a position of abundance, right? What are all the things that, that are possible that could get all of us more, right? I just met this gentleman, and I'm hoping to get him on the show, named Jason Campbell. And Jason is a musician, and he does meditation music. And he's been playing the piano since he was 6 or so. And he said his first music teacher told him that good musicians play the notes. They listen to the notes. They play the notes. Masters of music listen for what's in between the notes.
Wow.
And he takes it a step further to say, like, to be really effective, listen for the silence between the notes. And it's really in that blending. Like if anybody is listening and you have a piano at home, just go hit one note really fast. Just hit the note and take your finger off. And then listen to that note just linger in the air, and then hit another note really fast and hear how those notes combine with each other. And then listen for the moment when they drop off. And negotiation is really about that melding and that melding of music and finding the abundance and how those notes combine in the middle. And when you're not actually hitting the note, but what happens in the middle of it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love it put that way. And I could see it happening in conversations with relationships with customers and bankers and potential owners, and across the board is like, I love whenever I'm having those conversations. I've never liked doing it over the phone, because not only that, in that in between, like you're talking about, there's postures, there's so much communicated outside of the words somebody's speaking. Absolutely. And that all fits into exactly what you just said. It brings that whole area to life there.
Yeah, and it's huge. And what you're talking about is exactly that. It's just so powerful.
Yeah. And that's like, and again, like everything we're talking about right now, everything, like the other day when we had the conversation, everything we're talking about, it begins, negotiations, all of it begins with right here, the mindset, and like I'll work with clients, and the masses way of thinking is, like the needs. How am I going to get to the end of this month and pay the rest of my bills? There's so many people live like that. And maybe it's not that area, but in some area of their life, they're living like that based on the needs. How can I get this need met? Versus how can I go to the south of France and make $20,000 doing so? And like with that, I'll tell you is, Barbados. Yeah. I was giving a talk right before all the, virus and everything. I was giving a talk someplace and I was like, man, I really want to go to Barbados, but I don't want to pay to go there. I want to get paid to go there. And I had that thought and I was like, man, that would be so exciting. I just kind of do what I do with the vision and things like that. I just kind of rolled it around, and that's something your audience can take away too, is get something you want and really put it on. Like, what's it look like? What's it feel like? Like really put it on. Within a month, I was doing a talk in Michigan and I was doing a workshop. And afterwards, somebody came up to me and said, hey, would you have a half hour grab? I'd like to buy you lunch and talk to you about something. And I go, yeah. No, I didn't mention this Barbados, bless you, at all to anybody ever. It was just mine. And so we're talking, and she wanted to start putting together. She used to do it years ago and stopped for whatever reasons. And she wanted to start doing it. And she wanted to go to Barbados for a month, do 2 15-day retreats and have me as a spiritual retreat master throughout the whole thing. So I would get all my flights and everything paid. I would actually get paid to be there and do what I love doing, which is, speaking, doing workshops, things like that and everything. It just came. Now, if I were living on, man, how am I going to get clients in order to pay my rent next month, or, my house payment, or those things aren't, it's not that they're not still available for us at that high level, but we don't see them. We're not attuned to them. So they just pass us by and we don't ever recognize. So we go into a restaurant. Those opportunities that helped me to step away from corporate America and step into what I'm doing today happened because I overheard somebody. I just happened to overhear somebody say something, and then I was like, what's that about? And I leaned into it, and then something else and something else. But when we're living on that need plateau, those are going by us and we're not even noticing them at all. That's the huge difference in that.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I'm loving about this episode is I always love edifying some of my past guests too. And I'm getting to talk about a lot of them. So one of my guests, Andrew Kaplan, he wrote the book, The Last Law of Attraction book you'll ever need to read. And it's really good and he has great programs because he talks about how gratitude comes into play and how a practice of gratitude. I mean, he has a thing where in a meditation is like you're being grateful. It's like be grateful for kind of how your body works. I mean, I remember the first time I did it, I was like grateful for my spleen. And I'm like, whoever thinks about being grateful for your spleen? I mean, but I'm very grateful for it. It does a great job. It works just fine. So, so he talks about how how gratitude can create this, it reinforces the law of attraction. And, in our conversation that we had last week, I mean, you're just like full of gratitude for everything. I mean, you ooze it. And so, I that book just came to my mind, and Andrew, because I think, to everybody who's listening, or if you're watching on YouTube, check out all of these episodes that I'm talking about, because there's just so many nuggets that Joey's talking about that literally just drip into some of these other conversations, which is super cool for me, having listened to all of them and having been in them.
Yeah, that's really awesome. And, I want to say Wallace Waddles, but I don't think it was, where they said, there's a quote I love. It says, to be as grateful for it now as you're going to be when it arrives. So when we talk about moving from that need plateau up into that wanting, it's to get in that place. When I say about putting on the vision of what that is, what's it look like, what's it feel like, get into that place of living in the gratitude for it, even before it's here. How grateful are you going to be when it gets here? That is the law of attraction. That really is. And one of the areas I bring a specialty to it is there's so much around the law of attraction and what it is and things like that. But a lot of times it's set up to a one size fit all. In the application of it, that's where like things like The Secret and things like that fell short for me. And a lot of other people that I talk to, is because it's really clear what it is, how it works, everything else. But the application of it, Christine, your conditioning is different than mine, and different than each one of your audience members, your patterns, your paradigms, like those are unique to you. So how you would apply those, how I would work with you applying those, is different than I would work with somebody else applying those. That's where I love what I do, because I get to bring in that personal, unique application of those laws into people's lives.
Yeah, and I'm going to introduce you to Andrew, because I think that you two will have a really great conversation. So, because his stuff is very customizable. He's had the same reaction to the law of attraction that you did.
Yeah, right? That's awesome.
It wasn't working. He's like, I believe it, but it just isn't working. And then everybody was trying to have you do it the same way. And it's like, so he's been super creative. So I think you two will have an amazing conversation.
Yeah, I do too. And that's the reason why I only work. That's the reason I only work with 7 people at a time, so that I can commit into that person's life to truly, the way I work. If somebody works with me coaching wise, if they don't get beyond what that is, what that major goal or changes they want to make in their life, I'll give them their money back when we get done. That's how sure I am, because I qualify people up front. So I know that it's somebody that wants to put in, they really desire that change like I did and such. And so if that's the case, I know what I bring to the table with it. I know what my program brings to the table and everything I do and such. So, so it's really set up to, and I only want to work with 7 people, at a time, so that I can dedicate that time into that person, so they have my support, not just during the once a week coaching session, but throughout the entire program. So like I said, I am so blessed that I get to have a mark in people's lives that I get to have. And these conversations like this right here with you, it's like made my whole day. I woke up so excited we get to talk today.
Yeah, this has been awesome. How do people find you, Joey?
The best way for people to get a hold of me is they can go to coachwithjoseph.com. And they can schedule a block of time where that person and I will get on the phone and we'll just talk about what it is. I don't charge for that call, and talk about what's going on, help them start getting that vision sparked for what's possible for them and what their wants are above their needs, and get some tools to start bridging that gap for that call.
Oh, that's awesome. So I hope you guys will take advantage of that amazing offer to have that conversation with Joey. I have to say, we've spent like a couple hours on the phone now together, and I just have really enjoyed meeting you. And this has been a great conversation, a lot of really reinforcing things. And I hope everybody in the audience has just found this really valuable. I love your energy, Joey. It's amazing. So to everyone who has been listening listening. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of In the Venn Zone, where we just are so excited to help you elevate your negotiation skills. Go to venn.zone to check out the show notes. We will have links so you can find Joey and get on his calendar, take advantage of that free session with him. And you can find out more information about Venn negotiation, our Venn Masters programs, and all the things that we're doing in the market as well. We look forward to seeing you next time on another episode of In the Venn Zone. And in the meantime, happy negotiation. Thank you, Joey, so much.
Thank you, Christine. It's such an honor, really, with the mark you're having on this world, doing what you love doing and getting to be a part of that is a huge honor.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Till next time, everyone. Have a great day. Cheers.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of In the Venn Zone with Christine McKay. We invite you to visit our website at www.venn.zone to access the show notes and other helpful resources. Empower the negotiator in you and successfully level the playing field. Join us again next time here on In the Venn Zone.